I'd like to invite our next speaker, Ms. Shruthi. She has 20 years of experience and she currently leads the data management platform at HSBC. She's a proud alum of Chicago Booth and she is everything data. So I'm very excited to bring her on stage and happy to hear from you.
Thank you, Harika. So again, an open-ended conversation. So I think what would help is really to keep it as interactive as possible. I don't think I can go on in a monologue really. So yeah, thanks for the intro. And I mean, as Shravanti said, started off as a software developer, so from the same platform. Yeah, moved into the data domain. I think it's been 12 years odd now. So more around the data management, not specifically into the data crunchers part of it, where a lot of analytics, go into. Okay, you also put in my presentation, right? So what I was thinking is maybe I'll just considering the topic of the day, maybe I'll just delve a little into what I believe the emphasis or the importance of data management is in today's world, and why has it become so prominent all of a sudden. When I say all of a sudden, I think over the last 10 years it has grown like in a large, very very large scale. 10 to 15 years perhaps. Prior to that, it's not that the problem has never been there. I think in my perception, the problem had begun when we started getting into technology. So we've got like computers, we've got like digitalization, as a key factor back in the day, and we started keying in everything. So as long as it is, we have a software copy of it, we are happy. As long as it is digitized, we were happy. We never realized the problem that, okay, we are digitizing so many things. When I want something, where do I pick it up from? Should I go to this particular database, this particular database? Is this my repository? Which is the authentic one? Oh my, for instance, huge banks, they land up in like thousands and thousands of applications. Do we really need so many? Are they really discrete in their data? No. So that's how I think we landed up in this large mammoth of data that we have just been accumulating over the years, and now we are figuring out which is the right one to actually pick up from. So I think we have created a problem for ourselves, and now we are investing a lot in sort of digging through and how to make our own lives easier, how to make our own data like more productive and useful essentially. So I think that's all about data. I mean, it's not really a portfolio that has started, but it is something that we have evolved because we have created a problem for ourselves. Why should we do it? One of the things that I can talk through is I come from a financial organization. I've worked for a long time in financial organizations, and also not in any organization for that matter today, in today's world. Very simple example. Back in the day, we never used to bother giving our telephone numbers or names or numbers to anybody. Now we are so cautious around why should we give, that's because privacy has become so important. And also the consumers have grown, smarter rather, and they can sue any organization for inappropriate use of. So that actually brought in so many regulatory aspects from all over the world. Every region, every a geographical region has their own emphasized, regulatory things, which every organization has to abide with. Failing to which, I think you all might have read about it. I think a couple of years back, Citibank was fined, I think around 40 million, just because they were not compliant on their data strategy. So in US though. So every organization has its own thing. So one is, why do we need data management? Yes, compliant data, which primarily, driving factor is external. Somebody is going to fine us, so let's keep our, house clean. Streamlined operations, as I said, we don't even know ourselves. So if I want payment data, where do I go? Which is the right thing to actually, that can actually give me the right data. So those are like more streamlined operations for our own self. Most importantly, and many of the organizations which are really looking into the big data is essentially like you're understanding one single copy of it. So you're basically upselling it. I've heard about a weighing machine somewhere, from one of my US colleagues. So you check your weight on your weighing machine, and then the next day, or in fact the following hour or so, his Facebook page was actually showing up how to lose weight. So that's how big data is, right? So we're all connected now. So you don't know from where to what. So that is basic. The beauty of it is Facebook was, or rather whatever the technologies that were involved in that particular cycle was able to identify that it's the same person. It's one single person who I can collate my, personal data on, who I can collate about the entire, our universe runs around it. We talks about something today, it says that our phone listens, right? And then Instagram shows up your interest areas. So how is it able to do it? It is able to do it because it understands, okay, the one over there who is talking about, say, the financial, landscape of a particular thing is the same person who is also talking about, some other cosmetic products that she's interested in. And that's how they're able to upsell it, that, okay, these are the interests of this particular individual, so let me upsell my products. So that is nothing but our master data management, for instance, right? So monetizing, basically, that is, I think, most importantly, most of the organizations are interested is only to monetize the data. How would they be able to monetize? They should understand their data better. So if they understand their data better, that means they need proper governance around it. Governance is nothing but people understand what the data is, what are, like Shruthi was just saying some time back, how do I ensure that, things don't go out into wrong hands, things, we don't actually build up unnecessary, rules for ourselves. The one that she was talking about, the 20,000 odd checks that we have put in. That's because, perhaps we haven't followed a pattern. So don't want to get too bookish around it. Just feel free to stop me wherever, right? So we want some structure for ourselves. We want specific individuals or teams to perform specific tasks. That's nothing but defining our responsibilities, etc. So that's all is all. And we have to involve all the relevant parties together. So if I'm defining something today as a data custodian, but there is somebody else who actually owns the data, who are, the actual people who understand and, own the customer data, for instance, they need to approve what I'm actually keying in a particular system. So that's how we build our data governance products. I'll not get into too much into, there's so many tools these days available in the market. Oh. What am I doing? I think I went into the LOL. So I think as I I'll touch base little around the quality aspect of it. So any of the huge organizations, the CEO, there would be certain exec reports that are like most, pivotal for any organization, right? So HSBC, for instance, its annual report, it is publishing that I have my annual turnover is some X billion. How did you actually get that number in is what governments are digging into. So back in the days, at the end of the day, all data, I think, loves Excels, at least in the past. So there is some report that comes over to the CEO's table. From where did you pick it up? So what are the calculations that you did? N number of columns. So how is this particular number in this particular column had actually turned out? So that is nothing but our lineage. So if you are able to trace back, yes, my report actually says, number X, and this is actually been pulled out, over a series of applications or a series of data flows, and that is the origin of it, and that origin is a trusted source. That actually defines our lineage. Although it is so very simple to say, but I don't think it's a hard task, especially for large organizations, only because we have ended up building up so many silos in ourselves. capturing the same sort of data but through different applications, capturing the same sort of data through different names. So you're perhaps capturing an ID number of an individual, but in one app we call it something else, in another application you call it something else. Do I even know that that particular column in app 1 is the same thing as something else in app 2? So are we able to relate it? So that's all about data lineage. And touch basing around quality. Quality is like it's so important right now. Even the simplest example around address, for instance, right? So our addresses are like crazy. I know we are like governed by Googles of the world and all, but are we still carrying the same? There's so many third-party tools which actually sell addresses of people, right? Basically to say that, okay, this, so how we actually key in the addresses over the time differs. Is it accurate? That itself is a major factor that might influence some of the organizations to a large extent. So it's just a small example, but then quality of the data, if it's not been taken care, and there's so much in so many tools in place, and last month I've attended a Gartner's conference. It was all about how can we use AI to ensure our quality is better, data quality is better. Of course, there was so much of upselling that was happening, so many tools, you name it, there is a tool. And for me, technology is a small part of it. It's like an instrument, you use it any way you want it. But then do you understand what you want to fix with your tool? That is the key, I think, right? So, yeah, I mean, nowadays, touching upon Gen AI, there's so many, Gen AI tools that are in place right now, which can actually go through your, data, profiles your data, tell you that, this is where you're possibly going wrong. How can you actually fix it? Remediation is the next part, right? How can you actually fix it? It gives you suggestions around, fixing those particular things. It also tells you like, okay, this is, I think your data in this particular column is something related to, ID numbers. You possibly have to use these rules to actually remediate or, measure your quality aspect. So it automatically generates your DQ rules as well. So we are evolving a lot in that space. But then the reason I put in this wheel is this is Dama. There's an organization called Dama. It's a worldwide data management related organization. It's a Dama wheel. It's called a Dama wheel. So as you see, data governance sits as a core component. So this is where people aspect plays a major role with a level of automation, of course. But then all these factors, today's topic is more around quality, lineage, primarily, but everything should fall in place so that our overall enterprise-wide data management, can be carried out seamlessly. And of course, I think one of the major gaps that most of the organizations face is we don't have a blueprint of our own organization in terms of what is the type of data that we are dealing with, what is really critical to us. Identifying those factors basically make a difference. That's all. I think a lot of topic around data and data. Any questions or anything that you would like to know?
I'm
more than happy to answer.
So I think this is very interesting, right? Because this is a key component of a large part of work that we're doing at Signity as well, right? Within the data engineering space, right? So a couple of questions, right? One is data governance, of course, plays a key part, is a central part. But what I'm curious about is, compliance comes so much more, an important role to play, especially in fields like finance and healthcare, right? So how do you ensure that compliance does not hinder innovation? How do you ensure your data governance, whether it is a product or a process, can continue to foster innovation in the space of data?
A very interesting question. I don't know the answer really, but I think we have to hit a balance. So in many organizations, as you rightly said, finance and pharmaceutical, for instance, right? We are so worried about the fines that get incurred on us. So the entire, focus goes on how can I avoid it, rather than how do I actually clean up my house. Right? This is my house ultimately. I need to clean it up. I'm more worried about somebody else coming, what we do when somebody else comes to our house before, first we just clean up the, living room first, forget about the bedrooms or anything else. So that's exactly what we are doing, but that should not be the ultimate goal. Yes, we can't really, go away with, the significance that a compliance or a regulatory board brings upon us, but there has to be a balance of both cases. So yes, there has to be a BAU where on a regular mode, I follow certain rules. These are the methodologies I use that has to become the culture. So that's what we usually talk about, data-driven culture and all that, right? So that has to be embedded within the organizations. I can't just give my access to anybody where there could be a lapse of security of the data. So that has to be embedded in the culture while so safeguarding our own compliance and the regulatory standards that we do. And sometimes we get to lose the balance and focus more around the external factors, but that's where the key lies, I think.
Right. Well, I understand that the entire wheel is important, right?
Exactly.
Every part has is an important one. But talking specifically about data catalogs, right? Because you talked about we need to know our data, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So with respect to data catalogs, right? What are some of the measures or best practices, if you will, with respect to ensuring that you're able to not just trust the data, but you're also able to trust the metadata that comes with it?
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. I mean, I think if you ask me, the fundamentals of it starts with metadata. There's like our alphabets to the data. So if you don't understand our metadata well, forget about fixing it. It will always be a tactical fix here and there. So you understand your blueprints. That's what I was talking about, blueprints. So metadata is nothing but our blueprints. And catalogs will essentially help us to capture them at every level. So if I'm capturing it at a very physical level, techies might understand, not somebody from the business. And so that's the reason, even when you talk about architecture, there's a component called architecture as well. So that actually guides you to define your conceptual data models, which are at a very high level. Only the excos can understand. Okay, something like customer data, my product data, an abstract, a level of abstraction at that level. And then another logical level, it's typically our ER models. So someone more, who understands the domain should be able to relate to it, and then should come the final physical layer of things. So if all these things are captured properly into a catalog, the lineage is established halfway. The only other thing that we will have to focus around is how is actually the data getting transformed, the ETL aspects of it. So that nowadays, any tool is able to pull it once you connect to a particular data source. So, but then getting that, what is the relationships between what you actually have and how is it actually connecting back to something at a business level, that's the trick. So yes, so it all falls into the umbrella of metadata management. So that is, I think, the key to unlock the real value around your data system management or data systems in any organization.
I'll go with the flow, right, with the current trend of Gen AI. So could you shed some light on what are some of the trends or ways in which AI ML is shaping the data landscape, whether it is in terms of products or whether it is in terms of how you're looking at data? So for example, I think what you were talking about, right? Test data generation is one of the ways, you can start to generate data, and that can kind of save costs, it can become more efficient, it can ensure that you are generating data which is contextually similar, right? So while that's just one example, right, I wanted to get some thoughts from you given your experience. Where do you see that shift in the industry happening with respect to AI? And you can talk about either of the products or any life's journey, that you would like to.
Yeah, I mean, I can dig deep into it, but it reminds me of just mentioning about that Gartner's conference, right? So there was one session presented by somebody from Amazon. So his session started and ended like this. So he had a nice big screen. He started off with when you wake up. So you wake up with an alarm, and then you eat, and then you go to work, blah, blah, blah. So everything there is some connection with Amazon, starting with your, Alexa. So, everything is connected through Amazon. So the point he was trying to make is we are everywhere, right? But talking about AI is, I think it depends upon how we use it, for sure. And specifically about data management again, right? So there's so many use cases. We don't even have to, the creativity of where I can actually plug it in makes a difference. We don't need a tool. There's so many ML-based, open-sourced, APIs that are there. We just have to, grab it and use it in a way that aptly suits us. One of the things that I can maybe simple example that I can talk through is the metadata that you're talking about, right? It can generate useful metadata for us. Because over the years we have built up so many databases. For instance, even the column names do not make sense. So there are no column descriptions in most of our apps. So developers, they don't bother to put in some description on the columns also. So we can make use of AIs to actually generate column descriptions, based on which I can figure out, okay, this column is actually having my email content, and then relate it back to my business data. And then, back to the conceptual side of things, again, the data models, which gives us that end-to-end this thing, right? Relationship, the stitching of the content can happen seamlessly through AI. So that's in fact one of the things that we're focusing right now. Nobody knows which column is storing what. So we are trying to understand it, generate useful AI-generated useful descriptions and stitch it up. Similarly, the other example I was quoting, even in data quality aspect, for instance, forget about using AI to actually measure your data quality. It will also tell you, if you use it like in a way, it can also generate the right rules for you. So what are the rules that I really have to put in for this particular column, for instance, right? That can also be like, we can bring it up using AI. So there's like plethora of use cases. So we have the technology. It's again, right, there has to be some thought put through on what are the immediate or low hanging fruits that it can bring in, that can bring in value for us, for our business immediately, and then we should start using it.
Thank you so much.